You remember when John Legend recently went on MSNBS and pretty much just shouted that Trump was racist over and over and over? Anywho, Zero just posted this tweet for us all to, check out of Judge Joe Brown slamming John Legend and drags through the mud Fani Willis, Barack Obama, and Joe Biden. Let's dive into it.
Let me put it this way. Most of what is wrong with the criminal justice system in the United States of America that's trickled down from the federal level to the state level that negatively impacts blacks and other minorities was started off in 1979, 1981, 1983, 1987, 1991 and 1994, thanks to Joe Biden, Stennis, Eastland, and Byrd. And you can thank them for some of the problems with American criminal law as they negatively impact black folk. This mess about all of these people in jail, first offenders for one rock, you can thank Joe Biden for, with his mess about crack, even though it seems to have settled into his household quite heavily. I heard the low-down scummy bastard say in front of me, it was in Dover, Delaware, he was on the podium, he said, quote, "Negroes are animals and they turn the streets into jungles and they need to be put in zoos where they are safe and can be observed." He said Negro children are animals and they turn schools into zoos. And I don't want my children going to a school with Negroes in it turned into a zoo. I heard him say that. I saw him when he said it.
They got 4K footage of him actually saying it. But Trump is the racist.
He's a liar. He had to withdraw from the presidential campaign in 1988 because he lied about his academic career. He got found early to have plagiarized some things that caused his expulsion from an academic institution.
It was a continued practice.
He's a piece of urban trailer park trash who's had nothing but government jobs his entire life and has turned out a very rich man because of the bribes, the extortion, and the downright payoffs he has gotten under the table illegally. And there's some things that I saw that I read from the 3 downloaded laptops of his son. There were 3, not 1. I interviewed the technician. They are very incriminating, and there is a high probability that what they're after Trump in Florida for relative to refusal to turn over so-called classified documents that were placed under an act that, under the theory of Marbury versus Madison, 1803, 221 years ago, were unconstitutional. And what the point was is to get them back from Trump so they could be destroyed and not incriminate Biden and Obama from what was on those laptops.
Because shout out to Dan Bongino, who all told us to follow the money. Of course, they've been trying to protect Obama and Biden. First of all, Obama's been the one pulling the strings since Biden has been in office anyway. There's that. And in terms of what's on that laptop, telling y'all, he should have got the Hillary Bleach special. For real.
So we have a witch hunt. We have a problem that is engendered by the DAs in question, Fani Willis, we just got through talking to, having meetings in the White House, going after somebody's very strong political opposition. We've got a situation down in Florida where somebody is trying to go against what the Supreme Court has already said in 1988 in the case of United States Department of the Navy versus Egan, EGAN, which has multiple concurring opinions, and quite a few of them say there are no limits on what a president can classify or declassify, or any limitations on how he chooses to do so. either openly by written order or by action. Individual like Fani, who is jumped in here trying to do something. And we have another clown like this person right here who has no political science background, no law background, no political background, no economic background, who is coming in to pontificate about somebody's wrong and who's racist. So every damn thing I've seen about Biden, and I'm not that far under him, just a few years. What's going on is he has no qualifications to sit there and render anything other than an opinion generated by looking at the propaganda of the left of the Democratic Party plantation, of which he is an enthusiastic member.
In which they also pay people, according to their recent TikToker, Farah, I believe. She talked about how the Biden administration hit her up and purposely suggested that she make content talking about her colored experience when Kenji Brown was elected in the Supreme Court. They wanted her to falsify her experience. That's an actual fact.
So what he's saying about Trump being a racist versus somebody that for the last 50 years I have been hearing making one racist remark after another, I have had to deal with in the practice of defense law as somebody that was passing one bill after another, making another element of criminal law against minorities based on nothing but racist premises. I've watched that for 45 years. So I see this clown sitting up there doing nothing else but that, and then culminating it by having the audacity to say, if you don't vote for me, you're not black. So we have a handkerchief head houseboy sitting up there trying to call somebody who has done more in a few years for black folk than this clown is done in his entire 50 and nowhere near as much damage. Hell, I thought the people that were in that Central Park fight should have been damn near crucified, considering what they confessed to, and it wasn't like it got beat out of them. One of them got brought down by his father, and the police got confronted by the father and this person, and the dad said, this son of mine needs to make a confession to you. That's how it started. It was a pretty horrible crime.
Wow.
So I'm looking at what this clown...
I'm definitely going to have to go do some independent research on the Central Park 5. I've only seen the film that they came out with, and it showed a very different perspective. But at that time, I'm very sure that I wasn't heavy into researching backstories and things of that nature. I was still on the propaganda wave, just kind of seeing is believing kind of thing, right? So yeah, him making those claims, I definitely have to dig into that.
Has been sitting out there, being tagged out there to be the monkey on a little chain and start talking smack that he has no expertise in. Right. So it is part of the game. It's part of this thing we saw 4 years ago.
Let me say something.
One last little remark. You got a polite version of take your booties to the pole. You're getting a singer coming on. He's got a right under the First Amendment to express his opinion. So do these clowns, including the 1/3 of the cast that were trannies who were dancing half naked on the strip poles. They've got their right to do that as a form of expression. But that is insulting the black folk that they should be persuaded by. The unemployment rate for black folk was the lowest it's been since 1968.
They don't want to talk about that.
The earning capacity of black folk was the highest it's been since 1968 under Trump. The greatest amount of money percentage-wise of the national budget and in actual dollars devoted to HBCUs since 1968 under the Johnson administration was under Donald Trump. And it goes on. He endorsed the Platinum Plan that Ice Cube, who had made some study of the situation, was trying to work out with him.
I don't want to go too much into Donald Trump.
And the spy won't, but in spite of that, we've got...
Why you don't want to go to...
this
Because
character
I'm not promoting
who
Donald
is
Trump.
a disaster, getting up there and trying to get us to accept this with his grin on his face when it is a complete lie. It's a propagandistic fabrication, and it is insulting to insinuate that we are fool enough to buy that.
I don't want to talk about Donald Trump. I don't want anybody to think that I'm endorsing him. I bet. This is what everybody tends to do when them facts get to getting laid down. And Judge Joe Brown, man, he's somebody who understands how the system works. He's been involved in politics for a long time. More so on the law side of things. But yeah, man, his perspectives have always been unique as it pertains to Donald Trump. He's been one of the few black people whom known of Donald Trump before he decided to run for president, and known him not to be a racist, and speaks out against people actually trying to insinuate that he is just that. Pointing out the obvious hypocrisy that we see with Joe Biden. Nobody cares. He could talk about Joe Biden's hypocrisy and she ain't over there like, I don't want to talk about Joe Biden. But as soon as you start talking about the accomplishments of Trump, you see that? You see that? This is why communities are in shambles. For that reason right there. Because we don't want to talk about Donald Trump. Or we don't want to talk about somebody we oppose in general. Period. Why is that? See, society has this tricky way of removing our ability to critically think for ourselves. And on top of that, people are afraid of individual thought. Seriously, ask somebody their opinion. It's very rare, and it's a virtue if somebody actually decides to think for themselves, as opposed to just, repeat talking points that they've heard from some media source or some blogger or some me or whatever the case, right? Like, I ain't gonna sit here and play like I'm not in that realm either, but just being honest. You gotta go do some digging yourself. You gotta start challenging your beliefs. You gotta start actually having civil discourse with other people to either further your beliefs or to change some perspectives and help evolve them. If you ask me, it seems like Joe Biden is the one doing the dividing of the country.
Exclusively obtained some letters written by Biden himself.
He strongly opposed mandatory school busing. It was designed to achieve integration and a more equitable education. On March 25th, 1977, Biden wrote, "My bill strikes at the heart of the injustice of court-ordered busing. It prohibits the federal courts from disrupting our educational system." Biden sought and received support from Mississippi Senator James Eastland, the Democratic chairman of the Judiciary Committee, and a leading symbol of Southern resistance to desegregation. He frequently spoke of blacks as, quote, an inferior race. Eastland and others were partners on several of Biden's anti-busing bills. On June 30th, 1977, Biden wrote, "Dear Mr. Chairman, I want you to know that I very much appreciate your help during this week's committee meeting in attempting to bring my anti-busing legislation to a vote." Then in 1978, Biden again asked Eastland to put his anti-busing bill before the full Senate, writing, "Your participation in floor debate would be welcome." Most busing programs in America were later abandoned after bringing more hardship than equal opportunity to all students. Ronnie Dunn is a professor at Cleveland State University who co-wrote the book Boycotts, Busing, and Beyond. He says Biden's opposition to busing is not disqualifying, but warrants explanation.
Those letters I find somewhat surprising given Senator Biden's or Vice President Biden's current position and potential candidacy for the presidency and his position as a liberal. Those are issues that he's obviously going to have to answer for. Well, the fact that he would solicit the support of staunch segregationists, James Eastland as well as Jesse Helms, introducing legislation as opposing busing at that time.
But you don't know if you're black if you're not voting for Joe Biden.